I never thought my own family would look me in the eyes and tell me I was nothing, but that's exactly what happened on the day everything broke. It started with one sentence delivered with a smirk. My daughter-in-law leaned back on the sofa, crossed her arms, and said, "You can't live without us. You'd fall apart in a week." My son stood behind her, silent, not defending me, not even blinking, just letting her words land like a knife. I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was the moment I realized these people didn't know me at all. "You really think that?" I asked. She shrugged. "You depend on us. You'd lose the house, the business, everything." My own blood looked away, pretending not to hear her disrespect. That hurt more than her words. They wanted me small. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me to believe that they were my lifeline, when in reality, they were squeezing the life out of me day by day. That day, they pushed the final paper toward me, a property transfer, my house, my land, everything I built, all under the name of family management. Just sign it. My son finally spoke. "Don't complicate things." I stared at the paper. Their empire, the one I helped build, was slowly being taken from me, piece by piece, and the two people who should have protected me were standing there like predators, waiting for their prey to stop breathing. I lifted the pen, then placed it down gently. "No," I said. My daughter-in-law scoffed loudly. "You won't survive without us. You're too old, too dependent. Just sign it or leave. You can't live on your own." Her sentence was supposed to break me. Instead, it lit a fire in my chest, a fire I hadn't felt in years. I stood up, picked up my old bag, and walked toward the door. Their laughter followed me like smoke. But what they didn't know was this. When I walked out that door, I wasn't leaving my life behind. I was about to take back everything. And that one sentence they threw at me, it would end up costing them their entire empire. I always believed a parent's biggest weakness is the hope that their children will love them the way they once loved them. Maybe that's why I ignored the early signs, the whispers, the looks, the sighs of annoyance that slipped through when they thought I wasn't paying attention. It began slowly. My daughter-in-law, Samra, started rearranging my house as if it already belonged to her. She moved the furniture, threw out decorations my late wife loved, and even told guests this place just needs a younger touch. My son, Urim, said nothing. Then came the comments. "Abu, why do you still keep that old car? Abu, you don't know how online banking works. Let us handle your accounts. Abu, you're too old to live alone. It's better if we manage things." They called it help. But help doesn't feel like someone tightening a rope around your throat. They had slowly turned my home into a place where my presence felt inconvenient. They planned family dinners without me. They made decisions about renovations without asking me. They even spoke about selling the house once everything was sorted. I overheard them one night when I walked downstairs for water. Samra's voice was sharp. "We need him to sign before he changes his mind again. Your father is too stubborn. If he hesitates, he'll drag this whole plan forever." Urim replied softly, like a child trying to impress his teacher. "He won't suspect anything. He trusts me." Trust. My own son said it like it was. A weapon in his hand. My heart tightened. The two people who lived under my roof eating my food, using my savings, relying on my name, were plotting how to take everything from me. But I still told myself, maybe I misheard. Maybe I misunderstood. Parents forgive too easily. I tried to regain my space. I asked Samra politely to stop throwing away my things. She rolled her eyes and said, "We're trying to improve your life. Don't make it difficult." Urim didn't even look at me. The disrespect was slow like rain that doesn't flood immediately, but softens the ground until everything collapses. Then one day, I found a draft of a family property restructuring plan in their drawer. My name was on it. Their signatures were already prepared. Everything I owned was listed and allocated as if I were already gone, and that was the first time I felt something was deeply, dangerously wrong. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Something felt heavy, like a warning pressing down on my chest. When I stepped out of my room, I heard Samra talking on the phone. Her voice was hushed, sharp, and calculating. "Yes, Uncle. I'm telling you, once the papers are signed, the land will be under Urim's name. Then we'll finally be able to start the project." "Project? What project?" I stayed hidden behind the hallway wall, and she continued, "No, he doesn't suspect anything. He still thinks we're taking care of him. Honestly, the man doesn't understand his own value or his property. The man." That's what I had become, a stepping stone in her ambition. I stepped back quietly, my hands shaking. They weren't just playing with family matters, they were using my entire legacy as if it were a pawn in a game. Later that evening, they brought the papers to me with rehearsed smiles. "Abu, we just need your signature here." Aram said, tapping the first page. "What is this?" I asked calmly. "It's for easier management," Samra interrupted. "You don't have to worry anymore. We'll handle everything." Their voices were sweet, too sweet. Honey, coded lies, but I wasn't as helpless as they thought. I scanned the document carefully. The language was twisted, but not enough to fool someone who had managed land for 40 years. It wasn't management. It was transfer, my assets, my accounts, my land, everything. I need time, I said. Samra's expression cracked for a second. She forced a smile. "Why don't you trust us?" That word again. As if trust was a blindfold they wanted me to wear. I didn't sign. That night, sitting alone in my room, I felt the walls closing in. I realized I wasn't dealing with immaturity, I was dealing with greed. Just when fear started gripping me, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Navid, my childhood friend and lawyer. "I need to see you immediately. Don't sign anything. It's urgent." Urgent about what? A chill ran down my spine as I stared at his message. The next morning, I visited him at his office. He welcomed me with worry on his face. "Your son and daughter in-law contacted me." He said, "They wanted help transferring your assets." Quietly. My breath caught. "They told me you approved it, but I knew something felt off." He slid a file toward me, bank statements, drafts, agreements. "They're planning something big," he said, "and you need to be very, very careful." My entire world tilted. The document Navid handed me looked old, creased, yellowed around the edges, and sealed with a mark I knew too well. It was my late wife's handwriting. Where did you get this?" I whispered. "It was in the file they brought," he said. I don't think they realized it was still there. My wife's note was simple, but every word hit like a punch to the chest. "If anything ever happens to me, protect yourself. Don't let them pressure you. Our children are good, but the people around them may not be." I closed my eyes. She had seen what I refused to see. I thanked Navid and returned home with a storm brewing inside me. When I walked into the living room, Aram and Samra were waiting, but this time, their faces weren't polite. They were impatient, aggressive, hungry. "Abu, sit." Aram ordered, not asked. For the first time in my life, my son ordered me. "Samra, shove the papers at me again. You need to sign this today." I took a deep breath. "What will happen if I don't?" "That's simple," she said, leaning forward. "You leave this house, this life, everything. You don't belong here if you don't cooperate." My hands trembled not from fear, but from disbelief. My own house, my own family. I didn't belong anymore. I built this home. I reminded them, and now it's our turn to manage it. She snapped. That's when Aram said the sentence that would break the last piece of my patience. "Abu, you can't live without us. Don't make things difficult. Just sign." Samra added with a smug smile, "You won't last a week on your own." For a moment, everything went silent inside me. Their words didn't hurt. They awakened something fierce. Something that had been sleeping too long. I placed the pen on the table, slowly, calmly. "I'm not signing," I said. Samra laughed like it was a joke. "You're too old to survive alone." I looked at both of them, really looked, and realized something painfully clear. They didn't love me. They loved what I owned. So I stood up, picked up my small bag, and walked away. Not another word, not another look back. The front door closed behind me with a soft click, but that sound was the start of a war. I had walked out of their house, but I was about to walk into the biggest truth of my life. That night, I opened the old locker in my room at my sister's house, a locker I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old photographs, my wife's letters, and at the very bottom, a sealed brown envelope with my wife's handwriting. "Open this only if you ever feel unsafe." My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a neatly folded document, and when I saw the first page, my breath stopped. It was a property deed. Not just any deed, it showed that the main land, the house, and the family business were registered only in my name. Not joint, not shared, mine alone, and there, at the bottom, was my late wife's signature, and a note. "I changed everything when I saw the greed growing around us." Her words echoed inside me like thunder. If she had seen the danger, why hadn't I? The next morning, I went straight to Navid, the lawyer. He studied the deed carefully. flipping through each page, adjusting his glasses. "This changes everything," he murmured. "Aram and Samra have no legal authority over any of your property. They can't sell it, transfer it, or even access the accounts without your permission." I stared at him, stunned, but they acted like everything belonged to them. "That's because they were counting on one thing," Naveed said. "Your trust." He pulled out another file, the one Aram and Samra had given him earlier. "Look at this," he said. The file contained forged plans, illegal asset transfers, and drafts of agreements that would have made me a powerless spectator in my own life. "Your daughter-in-law is sharp," he added. "She prepared all this, your son. He's just following her." My chest tightened. Naveed flipped the papers to the final page and pointed at a name. My heart skipped. Who is this? Why is this person involved? It wasn't just Aram or Samra. There was a third name on the last page, a name I never expected. Somebody else was involved in their plan. Someone who shouldn't have been anywhere near my family matters. The third name on the document was my brother-in-law, Samra's uncle, a man who had smiled warmly in my home, eaten at my table, and called me Big Brother. So this was the project he and Samra were planning behind my back. A commercial deal worth millions, all to be built on my land. Naveed leaned forward. "They took loans under your name." My head snapped up. "What?" "Yes, they used your scenic and your old bank details. They registered fake authorizations, right now, according to the bank." He paused, anger rising in his voice. "You owe money you never borrowed." I felt the room spin. All those times Samra insisted on handling my paperwork. All those moments Aram told me to leave accounts to them. All the documents they slid toward me with fake smiles. It all made sense now. They weren't helping me, they were burying me, and there's more, Naveed continued. He pulled out a stack of statements. "These transactions, these payments, these loan withdrawals, they were all done by them. They've been siphoning money from your accounts for months." I stared at the pages, dozens of transactions. "Large amounts withdrawn, shifted, disappeared. They were preparing to leave you with debt," he said quietly while they took the assets. My heart burned with a slow, painful anger. "When were they planning to tell me?" I whispered. Naveed shook his head. "They weren't. They were planning to make you sign the property transfer first. Once everything was legally under their control, they were going to disappear. You would have been left with nothing but debt." I swallowed hard. My son, my own son, the boy I raised, the boy whose fees, books, dreams, everything I paid for, he wasn't the same boy anymore. "They're moving fast," Naveed said. "I overheard that your daughter-in-law is planning to finalize the loan papers by next week." I clenched my fists. "And I asked." Naveed smiled slightly. "We move faster." He handed me another envelope, one that had arrived that morning. It was a mysterious letter addressed to me. No sender name. Inside was a single line. "You don't know everything they've done. Meet me." There was a location and a time. "Who sent this?" I asked. "I don't know," Naveed said, "but whoever it is, they know something." A chill ran through me. I reached the meeting spot, a small, quiet tea stall at the edge of the old market. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the ground. My heart beat faster with every step. Who would call me anonymously? Who knew the truth about my family? As I approached a corner table, I saw a man stand up slowly. My breath caught. It was Akmal, the oldest worker from my factory, a loyal man who had worked with me for over 22 years. After my wife passed away, he was like a younger brother to me. He looked nervous, constantly glancing around. "Why did you call me secretly?" I asked. He sat down and lowered his voice. "Because if they find out I spoke to you, I'm finished." My heart tightened. "Tell me everything," I said. Akmal hesitated, then began. "Sir, they came to the factory 3 months ago. Your son and his wife. She said since you were old and forgetful, they would now be running things. They told us not to contact you directly." My fists tightened around the edge of the table. "They sold machinery behind your back," he continued. "They moved funds. They changed suppliers to companies owned by her relatives. The losses were blamed on you." I stared at him, speechless. "They even told some workers that you were planning to shut everything and leave the country, so people wouldn't question why money was disappearing." Each word felt like a dagger, and sir, he leaned in closer. "Your son, he knew everything. He approved everything. A deep, painful silence fell between us. After a moment, Akmal reached into his pocket and took out a USB drive. This has all the records, emails, voice notes, transaction receipts, everything they hid. I looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Why are you helping me? I whispered. He took a breath. Because you were always good to us, and because your wife once asked me to watch over you if anything ever happened to her. My chest tightened with emotion. He looked around again nervously. They think they've already won, he said, but they forgot something important. I looked at him, waiting. You still hold the master asset, the original power of attorney you made 20 years ago. My eyes widened. I had almost forgotten about that ancient document, but if it still existed, it could override everything. They think you're powerless. Akmal said, but sir, you still have the real power. That night, I opened the oldest metal briefcase I owned, the one I hadn't touched since my wife passed away. It smelled of dust and time, and the lock clicked open after a little struggle. Inside it lay a stack of papers, and on top, wrapped in plastic, was an envelope with my wife's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means they've crossed the line. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a second will, a secret one. My wife had changed her will shortly before she died. The old will had distributed property among the children, but this one said, all property, bank assets, land shares, and business rights belong solely to my husband. If anyone pressures, manipulates, or coerces him in the future, this will shall override all previous agreements. My throat tightened. She had seen the greed before I did. She had seen the danger. She had seen the people circling like vultures, and she had protected me even after death. Tears blurred my eyes for a moment. Naveed came over the next morning, and when I showed him the document, he froze. This is ironclad, he whispered. Nobody can challenge this. Not your son, not your daughter-in-law, not the uncle, nobody. He flipped page after page, his eyes widening. She specifically mentioned manipulation, and in the law's eyes, what they did counts as coercion and financial abuse. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground beneath my feet steady. Naveed placed the will carefully on the table. You have the upper hand now. They can't move anything. They can't take anything. They can't even touch your accounts without committing a crime. I exhaled slowly, but we need to act before they do. He continued. They're in a rush. Your daughter-in-law is trying to transfer the loan papers by Friday. Once those loans come under your name, clearing your property won't be easy. He leaned closer. We hit first. I nodded. But just as we were preparing the legal response, the intercom at the lawyer's office buzzed. Sir, the receptionist said nervously, someone is here, saying they need to talk to you. They said it's urgent and related to the family issue. Who is it? Naveed asked. A pause, your son. My stomach nodded. Aram entered the room with an expression I had never seen before. Not shame, not guilt, but arrogance, as if he still believed he had the upper hand. Abu. He started, not even glancing at Naveed. We need to finalize the property transfer today. I stared at him. Why are you in such a hurry? He hesitated for a moment, then tightened his jaw. Because the investors are waiting. Samra's uncle can't delay the project. You promised us. I promised nothing. I cut in. His nostrils flared in irritation. You don't understand how business works now. Things move fast. You can't hold us back just because you're afraid to let go. Afraid he thought I was afraid. You forged documents, I said quietly. You used my identity to take loans. You lied to me. You tried to trap me. His face stiffened, a flash of panic breaking through. Then his tone sharpened. You don't have proof. I smiled. That was the moment his confidence wavered. I have everything, I said. Emails, voice notes, transaction receipts, witnesses, and I placed the secret will on the table. Aram's face drained of color. This can't be real, he whispered. It is, Naveed said sternly. Your mother left it to safeguard him from exactly this situation. He took a step back, shaking his head. No. Samra said what? I asked. He swallowed hard. That you're old, that you won't fight, that you need us. Ah, the famous sentence again. You can't live without us. He murmured, repeating his wife's words unconsciously. Actually, I said calmly, the only ones who can't live without my assets are you. His jaw tightened in anger. You won't win this. We already have, Naveed replied. He picked up the phone and dialed. Within minutes, he froze all asset transfers, all business authority for Aram, and every corporate authorization Samra had tried to activate. Every account, every transaction, every loan attempt. Frozen, Aram stared in disbelief. "You destroyed everything," he shouted. "Do you know how much work we put into that project?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "You destroyed your relationship with me long before today." He stormed out of the office, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I exhaled deeply, but before the relief could settle, Naveed's phone buzzed again. He read the message, and his face hardened. "What is it?" I asked Samra. He said, "She's filed an emergency petition in court claiming you're mentally unfit to manage property." My blood ran cold. The courtroom was packed the next morning. Samra walked in wearing a spotless white dupatta, pretending to be the picture of innocence. She kept her head bowed, her expression humble, a performance worthy of an actress. Beside her stood her uncle, the man who had pushed this entire scheme. Aram avoided looking at me. Their lawyer stood confidently, ready to tear me down, Your Honor. He began, "The petitioner believes that the respondent, the father, is no longer mentally stable enough to handle financial matters. We request temporary control of all assets until a medical evaluation is complete." I clenched my jaw. Samra faked a soft sob. "He forgets things," she said dramatically. "He can't make decisions. We only want to protect him." "Lies layered in sugar," their lawyer continued. "He has no evidence of their wrongdoing. He is confused, emotional, easily manipulated." Naveed stood. "With due respect," he said calmly, "let me show you something." He walked to the judge and handed over the secret will. "This is the most recent legal document from the respondent's late wife granting him sole ownership of all properties." The judge examined it carefully. A ripple of shock moved across the courtroom. "And that's not all," Naveed said. He opened a folder and placed it before the judge. "Here are records of forged signatures, unauthorized loan attempts, and statements showing repeated withdrawals from his accounts using illegal digital access." Samra's face went pale. Her lawyer stuttered. These documents. They must be fabricated, no." Naveed said sharply. "They were provided by employees, banks, and independent auditors." Then he played the audio recordings Akmal had retrieved. Samra's voice filled the courtroom. "We need him to sign. Once everything is transferred, he's useless. He won't survive without us. He'll come crawling back when he realizes how dependent he is." Gasps erupted across the room. Samra froze. Aram looked like the earth had swallowed his feet. The judge slammed his gavel. "This court finds overwhelming evidence of coercion, manipulation, and financial abuse." Samra's face crumpled. "Therefore," the judge continued, "all property rights remain with the father, and the petition is dismissed. Additionally, an investigation into the financial misconduct will begin immediately." Silence. Deep, heavy echoing. Aram finally looked up at me, eyes filled not with anger, but fear. Samra's uncle rushed out of the room, his career shattered. My heart didn't feel joy, it felt tired, but I knew one thing, their empire was collapsing. Naveed placed a hand on my shoulder. This was just the beginning. He whispered, because now that the court had ruled, the real consequences would begin. The morning after the court's decision felt strangely quiet. For years, my financial support had been their lifeline, the fuel that kept their luxury cars running, the glow of chandeliers in their expensive home, the credit cards with endless limits. But now, everything was about to change. I sat with Naveed and Akmal, the loyal friend, and together we drafted the final steps. "Freeze all payments," I said firmly. Naveed nodded and began contacting banks, investment firms, and business partners. "All outgoing payments will stop immediately," he confirmed. "No transfers, no automatic bills." For days I waited, listening for the storm to hit, and hit it did. The luxury lifestyle that Samra and Aram flaunted crumbled like a house of cards. Bills went unpaid. Employees called asking for salaries. Vendors canceled contracts. Credit cards were declined. The golden illusion shattered. Samra's calls stopped at first, then came in bursts of anger and desperation. "Abu, please," Aram begged one evening on the phone, his voice cracking. "Let's talk. Just give us a chance." I didn't answer. The silence was my answer. Then came the message, meet me tomorrow. We need to discuss everything, please. Aram, for the first time in months, I felt the weight of his plea, but I was no longer afraid. I knew this meeting would decide if there was any hope left for my family or if they were truly lost. The next day, I agreed to meet Aram and Samra at a quiet cafe. They arrived looking worn shadows under their eyes, voices lower than before. Aram sat down first, avoiding my gaze. Abu, he started, voice trembling. I was wrong. I didn't see how much you were sacrificing. Samra's eyes flashed with anger. You think this is all your fault? She snapped. You were weak. You let her take control. I raised a hand to stop the fight. Enough. Aram's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Abu. I didn't realize how far we had gone. Samra scoffed. You think an apology fixes this? You broke your own father's trust. Tears welled up in Aram's eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought we were protecting the family. Protecting yourself. I corrected softly. Samra leaned forward, voice sharp and bitter. We took what was ours, no. I said firmly, you took what you wanted without respect, without love. The air thickened with emotion. Aram's voice broke. I'm scared, Abu. I don't want to lose everything. I looked at him long and hard, then earn it back. I said, but... Samra interrupted. We can't live like this. We need your support. My eyes narrowed. No more support. Their faces fell. I took a deep breath. This is your last chance. Change or lose everything. They nodded silently. I stood up. Think carefully before your next move. Weeks passed. I heard nothing but silence, no calls, no messages, only the sound of peace returning to my life. I had chosen freedom from greed, manipulation, and pain. Meanwhile, legal actions proceeded. Samra and Aram faced investigations for financial abuse and forgery. Their so-called empire began to crumble under the weight of their own lies. One evening, Naveed called me. The case is strong. The courts will not be lenient. I closed my eyes and smiled faintly. For the first time in years, I felt in control again. I sold some shares of the business to trusted partners. I reclaimed the house my home. But most importantly, I reclaimed my dignity. The past was painful. But the future was mine, and as I sat alone on my porch watching the sunset, I felt a new chapter was beginning. The choices I made had consequences, but they were mine to make, and no one would ever tell me who I was or what I was worth ever again. The days after the court victory felt like waking up from a long, dark nightmare. For the first time in years, I felt light. I started slowly, repairing the house, cleaning out the rooms Samra had changed without asking. Each corner I restored felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. Akmal stood by me, loyal as ever, helping with everything, from fixing the broken windows to reopening old business contacts. I also reached out to trusted partners in the community, people who believed in me, not just my money. Together, we rebuilt not just the business, but the trust and respect I thought I had lost forever. Peace crept back into my life like a gentle tide. I began spending mornings in the garden my wife once loved, feeling her presence in the breeze. At night, I slept soundly, without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. One evening, as I sipped my tea on the porch, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, I saw a familiar face standing there, someone I thought I'd never see again. The visitor stepped inside quietly. It was Aram. His eyes were rimmed red, his posture humbled. I'm sorry, Abu, he said, voice thick with regret. I was blind. I let greed blind me to what mattered. For a moment, I felt a rush of old pain. The same man who had once tried to take everything from me was now seeking forgiveness. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to make things right. We sat down, and he spoke of sleepless nights, regret, and the weight of losing a father's trust. I'm ready to face the consequences, he said, but please, let me try to be better. I listened quietly. My heart ached for the son I once knew, but years of betrayal had built walls between us. Actions speak louder than words. I told him gently, show me you've changed, not with promises, but with respect. He nodded slowly, tears rolling down his cheeks. Samra, however, never came. Her absence was a reminder that some bridges were too far gone. The road to healing was long, but that day was a start. Weeks passed. Aram kept his word, slowly but surely earning back respect, not money. He attended family meetings, apologized publicly, and worked quietly to repair what was broken. Samra, on the other hand, disappeared. She lost everything: the house, the money, and most importantly, the family. One day, as I sat reflecting on everything, I understood the true lesson this painful journey taught me. It wasn't about property or money. It was about respect. Respect for those who gave you life, love, and everything. Money can build empires, but respect builds legacies. And when respect dies, even the mightiest empire crumbles. I whispered to myself, respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.